Welcome to Catholic Ed for All, your weekly insight into topics of special education in Catholic schools. My name is Dr. Raul Escarpio, and I invite you to join me each week as we learn how to be more inclusive in Catholic schools and continue to live out St. John Paul II's message of open wide the doors to Christ. Many thanks go out to RCL Benzinger, who is generously sponsoring this podcast. RCL Benzinger enriches the worldwide Catholic community by providing the most engaging and highest quality resources, programs, and services rooted in the rich and diverse tradition of the Catholic faith. And now, on to our show. On the show today, I am joined by Mr. John Petruzelli, principal of Colby Academy in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Why, hello, John. Welcome to the show, and thanks.
Good morning, Raul.
I'm so happy you.
Great to be here. Thanks.
Can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself, John?
Sure. It's not much of a big story. I've been in Catholic education my entire life, 30 years. I've started out, as a teacher, coach, did lots of activities, student council, moved into administration in the late 90s, and in 2010, I got my first principal's job here in the Diocese of Allentown at Bethlehem Catholic High School. I was there for 7 years. And last year, I served as principal at St. Joe's Prep School down in Philadelphia. And in October, I returned to the diocese with great excitement to lead this initiative of Colby Academy as their principal.
So what did you teach and what did you coach?
So I was a history teacher and a religion teacher. I taught in high school for the majority of my career, a couple of years in middle school. Favorite was world history, and favorite was teaching freshmen. I get that great opportunity to mold those students as they come into the high school. And I coached a little bit of track, but mostly baseball. I'm a big baseball fan, and played my whole younger life and started coaching right out of high school.
Excellent. So the freshmen are kind of tiny when they come in, aren't they?
They are, but I love it because they have such excitement of being in a new place. And, as corny as it might sound, probably not to your audience, but to maybe other people, you really have an opportunity to mold them coming into a new school.
Yeah.
And help them become a part of the culture and, really give back to the school in great ways. So that was always my favorite group to teach.
Fantastic. And I assume you're a Philly fan or a Pirates fan?
Oh, I'm a big Phillies fan, Raul. Yes, the Pirates on the other side of the state, and we're enjoying a little bit of a rebirth this year. They're in first place, but absolutely all the Philly teams I love, but particularly the Phillies.
Well, I'm a long-suffering Miami Marlins fan, so we don't talk,
okay.
We don't talk baseball as much anymore.
Okay.
All right. So, what led you to Colby Academy?
So, Raul, if you would have told me even 10 years ago that I'd be doing something like this, working in a recovery high school, and starting a recovery high school, I would have told you, you had no idea what you were talking about. But about 4 or 5 years ago, I had the opportunity to see a wonderful documentary called Generation Found. And the documentary is about the recovery high school in Houston, Texas, called Archway Academy. And it's really probably the most successful recovery high school out there. There's about 30 recovery schools out there, and Archway is the most successful. And the documentary was about their opening and the success they had and the need that they had in their community to open a recovery school. And I remember walking out of the theater. We had done it here in Bethlehem, and all the Catholic school personnel were invited to the showing. And I remember walking out of there saying to a colleague of mine who went with me, that is such a cool idea. I would love to do something like that someday, never thinking that I'd have the opportunity. And, as time went on, unbeknownst to me, at the time, our deputy superintendent was very interested in this concept of a recovery high school. So she put together a committee to look at, the feasibility of maybe opening one here in the Diocese of Allentown. And she asked me to serve on the committee, and I only served for a very brief time. because then I changed jobs and went back to Philadelphia for that last year. But something very powerful happened in my last year at Bethlehem Catholic, and it was a student I was very close with ended up going into rehab and had 2 stints in rehab. And I remember finding out about it and, from his parents, and we as a school not having any idea what was happening in this young man's life. And I felt like, oh my gosh, how did we drop the ball on this? How did this happen? And we weren't there to support him and, and help him in some way. And that young man really inspired me, and I really began to learn a lot about addiction because of his situation. Now, I had students in the past, in 30 years, different students having issues, but none as severe as his. And that really impacted me. And then, a couple months later, here I am in the spring of 2018, and I'm hearing this wonderful news coming from the Diocese of Allentown that they were going to open this school. And I got together with Dr. Tichet, who was really spearheading the project. And you know how it is, you go to lunch and you start talking, and it was like, well, what do you think? Would you like to be involved? Why don't you come to our next meeting? And I went to a meeting in March, and I was hooked, and I thought, oh my gosh, I have to be involved in this. And God is good, and I've been blessed. And one of the great blessings was the opportunity to come back to the diocese and join this incredible project. And just so excited. I've been officially on the job since October 1st, and it's been wonderful.
So it's one of those situations, or those God situations, that says, be careful what you ask for, you might just get it.
You know what? That's absolutely it. And, you never know when you say something like that it's going to happen. And, some mornings I wake up and I'm like, we are opening a brand new school. This is wonderful. And then other mornings I wake up, I'm like, oh my goodness, we are opening a brand new school. Yeah. But yes, be careful what you wish for, because you might get it. And,
right.
I feel very blessed to be in this position right now.
The Lord is smiling right now, saying, you got to trust me.
I sure hope so.
You got it. I know,
sure hope so.
You're a little tense. I got it. I'm here. I got it. The Holy Spirit, I'm sending you the Spirit right now, and you're going to see how we're going to take care of this. So for those that don't know, tell them about Colby Academy. Tell them about this recovery high school that you have.
Sure. So the recovery high school concept is a high school exclusively for students that are in recovery from drug and alcohol addiction. As I said earlier, there are about 30 in the country. There are a few more that are going to open this summer with us, but we are going to be the first faith-based Catholic recovery high school in the country. So we are really, treading down unknown path here, and we're so excited to be leading the way. We're going to open in Bethlehem in August. August 26th is our opening day. We are in the process of, really just being out in the community, getting the word out there, doing lots of PR, lots of social media. We're meeting with hospitals and doctors and therapists and school districts to let them know what we're doing and to see if we might be an option for students that might have this drug or alcohol addiction. When the school opens, we're going to be looking, it's 9 through 12. We'll be looking for both boys and girls. It's a co-ed school. We'll be the 7th diocesan high school here in the Diocese of Allentown. We'll operate just like the other 6 diocesan high schools. We'll follow the same curriculum. We'll have the same protocols as those schools do. But what will make us different is that during the course of the school day, we are going to provide counseling and recovery support to our students. So we will have drug and alcohol counselors in the school building working with the students individually, in peer-led groups, in different activities that the counselors will run. And while the students are, taking math class and religion class and doing campus ministry activities, they'll also be getting these counseling supports. And there'll be pullouts from the day on a rotating basis in study hall, things like that, so that students aren't missing a lot of class time.
So when looking at this high school, I know the students that you're going to welcome coming this fall, but are you also welcoming students with diverse learning needs?
Absolutely, because the research shows that typically students with a drug and alcohol addiction have a co-occurring, not always, but a lot of times have a co-occurring issue of either special ed needs or mental health needs. So in looking at the research and looking at other schools that are running right now, a lot of times students that come to them have those learning needs. So we're preparing, we'll have a coordinator of special learning needs to work with the students, look at IEPs. When we do an admission and an intake eval, we'll look at their academic history, the credits they have, and any needs that they might have, and then we'll be able to write an individual plan for every student that comes to us. Now we're going to be small. We'll never be bigger than 90 students because that's what our building will hold. But we'll be able to look at the individual needs of each student so that if they need, extended testing time or if they have some kind of learning issue, we'll be ready to address that.
And I'm glad you mentioned the correlation, although we know that correlation does not mean causation. Working with students with emotional and behavior disorders in severe environments, I mean, I know there was a prevalence some of the students did have addictions in the classrooms and all that. So I'm glad to see, John, that you're not limiting yourself to what they call typical learners, if there's even such a term anymore for students that
Exactly.
don't
And
have special
and let me
needs.
add one thing. Yeah, let me add one thing with that, Raul. With regard to really being ready to deal with all kinds of learners, one of the great things about being small, we're going to be able to have a flexible schedule. So on Wednesday afternoons, we're actually going to end the academic learning time a little shorter on that day. And in the afternoon, our students will have some kind of group activity, whether it's a service project, a field trip, or some kind of counseling or recovery support program. But while that's happening, our faculty and staff, and not just the teachers, but our staff as well, we're going to do a year-long in-service program on Wednesday afternoons to address learning issues and recovery issues. So we're going to be able to bring speakers in. We're going to be able to allow our faculty and staff to really get to know what's happening with students that are in our school. And I'm really, really excited about that because for all of us coming in, this is something brand new. We've never taught in an environment like this. So, I really want to make sure our faculty and staff is ready to deal with whatever issue might come up.
And that's admirable because we know that if we can keep them involved, if we can keep the environments positive, there will be results. I mean, just the joy and the blessing of having 90 students at capacity. I mean, I know you probably won't have nine anywhere near that number when you start, but just to have
No, I don't.
to have that number is amazing. I mean, I'm thinking of things that with my background of like a positive behavior support school, PBS school, that you can have everybody on the same page as far as behavior and learning and all that. So you can do great things besides the addiction recovery part, which is admirable. So you would be the first Catholic recovery school, is what you're saying.
Correct. Correct.
I mean, you got to start somewhere, right, John? You got to start somewhere.
Absolutely. And you know what? Every time I say that, I get chills because, I think we might be, and we certainly hope we are, becoming a model for other dioceses to do the same thing. We're certainly not going to be in a bubble and keep this all to ourselves. We want to share this with dioceses across the country, and not just with Catholic schools, but anybody that would want to know what we've done or what we're doing. We want to share that because we've been so fortunate to visit other recovery schools, but we really believe the faith component is such a key component to students and any person in recovery. They have to have that spiritual component, that relationship with God to, basically surrender themselves to the higher power and having God and Jesus Christ in their lives. So we're really excited to lead the way for that.
And in a different kind of way, we're all on the road to recovery because we're all trying to get to heaven. So what better way than to say that why not make it a Catholic school, which where you can tie all those themes in?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And I'll throw you a softball question. Why Kobe? Why the name Kobe? I know what it is, but I want you to tell the audience.
Okay, well, Colby Academy is named for Saint Maximilian Kolbe, who is the patron saint of us people that are addicted and in recovery. Just a quick little background: Saint Maximilian was a priest who ended up in Auschwitz concentration camp during World War II, and at some point in his time there, a prisoner escaped from the camp, and the guards decided that they were going to kill 10 of the prisoners to show the other prisoners that they better not escape. And St. Maximilian took the place of a father who was chosen to be killed. And St. Maximilian took his place so that he wouldn't be killed and he could remain with his family. And eventually he was killed by lethal injection. So that's the reason why he's the patron saint of those in addiction and those in recovery.
Eh, something that the audience doesn't know, only my guests know that I've been part of the show, is that we always pray before we start, right, John? And after
Yes.
we pray, we always ask the intercession of two people. One of them is Saint John Paul the Great, and the second one is Maximilian Kolbe, because he's one of my patron saints, and I love the Saint of Auschwitz because he just calls out to me. He has a special devotion to Mary. So I'm going to ask my audience, and when they hear this episode, to please say a special Hail Mary for Colby Academy and ask for her intercession, and obviously Saint Maximilian Kolbe's intercession as well for the success and blessing of this program. So with that being said, John, I always ask this question, and I want to hear your answer. What should Catholic special education look like, and what should it look like at Colby?
Well, I think, it looks different everywhere, and I think it depends on the school and the community. And I'm so happy that more and more Catholic schools and more dioceses are coming around to understanding that we can meet the needs of those students that need that extra help. For us, it's gonna look very much like one-on-one opportunities for a student to work with a teacher, to work with our director of special ed. For us, it's going to be really being cheerleaders for our students to help them understand that no matter what issue they face, they're facing addiction issue. If they can beat addiction, they can certainly beat any special needs they have in the classroom. And we're going to provide them with the support to make sure they're successful. So for us, it's going to look like um, a group of faculty and staff supporting our students in any way that they need, and us putting our arms around them to make sure that they can be successful both at our school, but then once they leave the school.
Fantastic, fantastic. John, I want to thank you for joining me today. Again, I wish you nothing but prayers and blessings as you start your mission at Colby Academy and continue helping to meet the needs of God's learners. You have my prayers, you have our the audience prayers, and please let us know any way that we can help make this a success.
Great. Well, you know what, Raul, that's it. That's key. That's number one. The prayers. That's what we need to start. We're so blessed to be in a position where we're at, but we know we have a tough road ahead, and just having those prayers and the support from you and your community and your listeners is tremendous. So thank you so much for that. And we're all over social media. I encourage you and your listeners to follow us, and we're on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and uh, our, uh, our website address is www.colby-academy.com, and just follow us along and like us and tweet us and all that good stuff.
Look at that self promotion right now. I love that, John. I
Hey,
love.
it's all about marketing, right? It's all about
Absolutely. I
marketing.
love that marketing thing at the end. John, God bless you, and I hope you do well, my brother.
Thanks, you too, Raul, and prayers and blessings to you as well.
Thank you. Well, that's it for this week. If this podcast was a blessing to you, can you please head over to iTunes and subscribe and give us a review or a rating. It really does help other Catholic educators find the podcast and use it as a resource. Thanks again to the amazing people at RCL Benziger for generously sponsoring this podcast. Check out their new resource for Catholic schools, Blessed Are We, Faith in Action, which enables teachers to share the love of Christ with children who have special needs. Visit rclbenziger.com to learn more. Join me again next time as we continue to advance God's kingdom by including all of God's children in Catholic schools and faith formation. Until then, this is Dr. Raul Escarpio. Thanks for listening, and may God bless your day.